The pink pill is the pink pill now. Put your pinkies up now, up now, up. Live well to the extreme now. Put your pinkies up now, up now, up.
Hey, it's Pinky. You're on the Pink Pill YouTube channel. Be a love and like, share, and subscribe. Pinkies up.
Hey, it's Crystalline Karazin back with another Fumble the Bag series. This time we are looking into Mary J. Blige, the queen of the struggle love anthems, and she comes by that title honestly. With a background of sexual abuse, absent father, all sorts of disrespect romantically, along with a dash of colorism, she makes for a tragic Hollywood story. So let's get right into it. Mary J. Blige recently made headlines because she was at the center of a Super Bowl halftime performance, complete with Dr. Dre, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent, and Snoop Dogg. I have no idea how she was able to manage doing such a stellar performance surrounded by a dust storm. How she managed to do it, I have no idea, but good job, Mary. So let's get right into it. Why is she such a tragic story that's worth exploring? So she just recently did the Super Bowl performance, and news has it that she wasn't paid. But the good news is that with all of the recognition and the fanfare from the Super Bowl, she's gonna do just fine. Apparently her pocketbooks are going to swell and swell and swell. And let's hope, because she's going to need it, especially after the tragic breakup of her husband, who, well, we're gonna talk a little bit later, was the dusty of all dusties, which put her in a situation where her mega millions and all her fame reduced her to not being able to pay the rent and was forced to go on tour because of her, well, let's just say, poor choice in a marriage partner. Let's get into it. Mary J. Blige was born January 11th, 1971 at Fordham Hospital in the Bronx. And like many young, beautiful, soulful singers of her day, she started in the church. She sang soulful spirituals for her church in the South when they briefly moved there, and then back in New York City. Later on, she was discovered by Sean Puffy Combs. You guys know him by P. Diddy, or you know him by Diddy, or whatever he is this week. He discovered her, and it catapulted her career to a new height I don't think she even ever imagined. But it did not come without its problems. But before she made it big, she had some serious issues. As I mentioned before, she was a victim of childhood sexual abuse, and she was regularly abused throughout her teen years. Her mother was forced to move to the projects. Her and her 4 siblings had to subside on her meager wages as a nurse while they lived in the projects. Their father abandoned them because he had mental illness. He suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after fighting in Vietnam, and he was rendered relatively useless to the family. She would later divorce him and have another child by someone else. During that time, she was a victim of what many Black women suffer from. This is our story, is it not? And let's just be honest, the colorism, the sexual abuse, the absent fatherhood, the neglect, the poverty, all lends towards us making very poor choices when it comes to men. And Mary J. Blige was not immune to what many of us face when we're dealing with the romantic struggles of being a Black woman in our community. And even with her success, women who look like Mary J. Blige can only go so far. They can only reach certain heights. They're only appealing to a certain type of man under certain conditions. They know that they have to step aside for the preferences. They know that there are certain things that they're just going to have to expect and accept. Other things that perhaps other women who look a little bit differently don't have to expect. Mary J. Blige was a victim of all of that. But in 1992, Mary J. Blige hit it big with What's the 411 under the production of Sean Puffy Combs. It was an amazing album that did exceptionally well. It became part of my young adulthood back in 1992, just a year out of high school. Everybody was bopping to I'm looking for a real love, someone. Yeah, that was me, and I was bopping my head to it. But behind the scenes, Mary J. Blige was suffering with the same low self-esteem, struggles with the depression, the alcohol and drug abuse. And she got involved with a man who would exacerbate those issues, and that was KC. He's the C in Jodeci. We all remember Jodeci, right? What is that song again? Forever, my lady, you mean so much to me. Yes, so KC was briefly engaged to Mary J. Blige. She was so excited about it, told the world. KC came back and told everyone they're not getting married. And then we found out later that Mary J. Blige was getting her head beat in by him. So those were tragedies that were going on at the time, that she continued to have successes in her professional life, but her personal life suffered because she wasn't given the tools and she didn't have the self-worth to know that she deserved better. Even throughout all that, she came out with album after album after album, and they were hits. She made mega $1 million. She also tried her hand in acting and did very well, and even had an Oscar nomination. Things were looking very good for Mary J. Blige for a long time, for even a decade. But her love life still suffered. And in early 2000, she met her husband, her future husband, who would, for a short time, be that flicker of light, that little silver lining at the end of the rainbow. And then it would turn out to be the calm before the storm. Martin Kendu Isaacs worked as Mary J. Blige's manager before he became her lover. Mary J. Blige talks about how he helped her overcome her drug and alcohol abuse. They fell in love, and in 2003, they married, and for a while, things were looking amazing. She was so much in love with this man, and it seemed for a while he was also in love. But over time, Kendu became the bane of her pocketbook. And what do I mean by that? The profligate spending, exploiting her fame and fortune for his own benefit, not managing the money, and the alleged affair in which he spent upwards of $400,000 in travel expenses, flying this woman all over the creation on Mary J. Blige's finances. It was absolutely horrendous. Everybody knew about it except for Mary. And I also have to find it interesting that the woman in which he cheated on her was much younger and very different looking, if you know what I mean. And can we take a second and take a look at this picture of Mary J. Blige in her green bikini next to Kendu? Do you think that maybe that top that she's wearing could easily be interchanged on him? The dude has some man boobs that we need to discuss in a later video, but we're not going to discuss them right now. So now let's talk about why Mary J. Blige, with all her fame and fortune and accolades, still went towards a men who mistreated her, who abused her, who cheated on her, who gave her all the fodder for her hit struggle love songs. We have to go back to the familiarity principle. We talked about it a few videos back, and you can take a look in the video up there, where psychologists say that many of us will opt for relationships that feel familiar to us. We don't necessarily seek happiness, we seek what is comfortable for us. We are comfortable more with the devil that we know versus the devil that we don't. And even though Mary J. Blige had all the money in the world, millions of dollars, she traveled all over the world. And there was even an opportunity for her to take etiquette classes. There's an article that I read that etiquette classes were offered to her and she refused. She did not feel comfortable in certain circles, and so she forced herself in what was familiar. And as we know from that last video, what's familiar isn't always what is functional and what is healthy. So she refused the opportunity to make certain changes in her life. When it came to relationships, she could have sought counseling, the best therapist in the world. She could have refined herself, smoothed out her rough edges, but she decided not to because it was all just too foreign for her. And because of that, she suffered greatly. Mary J. Blige finally got the memo that this marriage was just not going to work, and she filed for divorce in 2016. But it didn't stop there. In fact, she would have a host of mishaps and financial struggles as she tried to disengage herself from this man. In 2016, she filed for divorce when she finally realized that he was cheating, ran up that $400,000 travel bill, plus a whole lot of bills trying to wine and dine this woman who he was cheating on her with. And when she did file, this dusty dude had the nerve to petition for spousal support. Okay, that's fine, she made more money, but let's explore for a second why Mary J. Blige, who worked for her millions and millions of dollars and all of her success, would end up marrying a man who has maybe a net worth of $1 million, if that, if we are to believe what's on the internet. What was that about? So, of course, when she filed for divorce, he was going to try to maximize whatever he could bilk out of her at $103,000 a month in spousal support. It was so bad that Mary J. Blige said that she was forced to go back on tour because she could no longer pay her rent, because her ex-husband was bilking her out of so much money, had mismanaged the money that she did make. This man is a destroyer of worlds, and that's exactly what Mary J. Blige allowed for him to do. So now that she's disengaged from this man, one has to wonder, she just had this amazing Super Bowl experience. She's back on the public stage in the public discussion. She's much loved and much admired and appreciated. She has the opportunity to again make a huge amount of money. I have to wonder, what's she gonna do in her personal life? Will she maybe get on the phone with Eve and Sierra and ask them if their husbands have any friends? Is she going to do anything different? Is she going to learn from her mistakes? She did say in an interview that if she would ever get married again, she would marry a man who made some money. She was never going to take care of a man again. So there is hope that after this Super Bowl event, after learning those hard lessons and knowing that she can't build a brother up, she needs to have a brother who is already built, and brothers come in all races and colors. There is hope for her in the future, but we'll all have to wait and see. But in the meantime, Mary, we wish you well. Congratulations on your comeback, and just leave the Dusties alone. Take a page from Eve and Sierra and pick the best men for the job. Until next time, I'm Crystalline Carras, and let me know what you think about Mary J. Blige's comeback. Let me know what you think about the ups and downs and the highs and lows of her career. What were some of the things that I might have missed? Let's discuss in the comment section. Let me know if you're rooting for Mary J. Blige to make the right decision, or will she be doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again? Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, pinkies up.